that you may have been in a position where you had the majority of the power in your hands, and now things are changing because things need to grow. As the company begins to scale, as the company gets a little bit bigger, power will change. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Must Become YouTube channel. My name is Spencer, and I believe the way you can become, you must become. That means if you're trying to make the best version out of yourself, this channel is the place for you. When power shifts, what exactly does that mean? Guys, especially in the kind of place I'm in, we're a growing company, we're scaling pretty aggressively. Like I said, a lot changes as you go from startup to kind of, you begin to kind of grind a little bit harder and you move a little bit faster, and things really do begin to change. And I think one of the main things that changes is the power dynamic. And this can have a lot of different impacts. I'll give you the first example, is that you may have been in a position where you had the majority of the power in your hands, and now things are changing because things need to grow. As the company begins to scale, as the company gets a little bit bigger, power will change. And one of the things that I'm really known for amongst my peers, and I really enjoy having this identity, is I obsess over reading about different people's stories who've been in a similar position. I love entrepreneurial books. I love stuff like that. I have a very, very selective bookshelf of stuff that, is really important to me to learn and to understand and take inspiration from. And one thing that a lot of especially the coaching books, the books that are designed not so much as autobiographies or biographies, but more so as direct coaching to entrepreneurs or executives, a lot of them say something that I used to always overlook. I used to always be like, yeah, no big deal. But this is something that now has become such an obvious lesson to me. And I just want to share this with you guys in case any of you guys are starting a business, or you guys are running in a business and you guys are beginning to scale, more and more people are coming through the doors, and you guys are having a bigger and bigger team. This lesson was something I always overlooked. And it was basically talking about how one of the most important things in a company is having a cohesive executive team, but also recognizing that there needs to be a level of communication. Just like in any relationship, that might sound like fluffy stuff. You talk about, communication makes all the relationships continue, or whatever the fuck the saying is, but it's true. It's absolutely true, guys. Like I would say with us right now in our company, there's 3 executives, and I think one of the best ways that we've been able to handle the kind of the power shift of different people have coming up, different people have moved or have been moving on, different stuff, is really solid communication. I think one of the best things that this company specifically, which I will not name right now, but we have such amazing communication and teamwork. And the thing is that power will shift. Different employees will take different positions. They'll move up, they'll move down. Executives, same thing. They'll leave the company, they'll join the company, a whole bunch of different stuff. People will be moved up from within. And when power shifts, it can be very uncomfortable. And I'll explain kind of a couple different ways that I've seen. So this is just for better or for worse. This is basically just an explanation of what I've seen in terms of how power shifts can affect different people. So I think people that start with a lot of power, generally, all of the power, especially if they're the founder of the company, something like that, they're very used to, not only are they the ones calling all the shots and having all the ideas, but they're also their own manager. So they manage their own time, they manage their own interests, and it basically, if they decide, today I want to completely switch directions and I just want to work on X today. I know I said I was going to work on Y, but now I want to work on X. When the power shifts and, that person who might be a founder has, gets somebody else on their team who is responsible for managing their time. So that could be an assistant, that could be a chief of staff, that could be an operations lead, it could be whatever it is. You'll see that it's a very interesting transition because in some cases, they're not used to answering to anybody. They haven't been used to answering to anybody, but it's very similar. When I say answering to, it's very similar to if you were to hire like a personal trainer. You've ultimately told the personal trainer, look, I want to get in shape, build some muscle, lose some fat, whatever it is. And they'll say, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And they're going to kick your ass ideally when you're in the gym. Now, it's a similar thing when it comes to a founder relationship or executives or whatever. It's a similar thing because even though you have paid the personal trainer or the founder or whoever, the owner, let's say, pays a chief of staff or a personal assistant or whatever it is, it can be a little bit difficult because the founder, the owner, whatsoever, is not used to being managed. So when power shifts like that, it can be very difficult to get used to. And one thing that I highly recommend is really, again, solid communication. Don't even leave the boardroom until you guys are actually both on the same page. And it might go all night. You guys might be yelling and throwing stuff across the room. And believe me, I've been there. It's happened several times. We have to understand, and this is one of the most powerful things, is recognizing that even though you have different positions, you have the same interests, which is that you're trying to move the company upwards and onwards. So patience is required on both sides. Patience is required by the executive or the chief of staff or the assistant. So you need to be patient with them and understand that there will be some growing pains and continue to communicate whenever you possibly can. Okay, that's the first thing. But there also needs to be patience from the other direction, from the owner to the chief of staff, or from the owner to, again, to the owner to the assistant. There needs to be patience with that person because they now have to completely restructure the the owner's time or whatever in a way that is conducive to the owner's goals, but also they might be coming into the company and not knowing the way things work first and foremost, and they're getting used to everything, and the owner or the founder will be very obsessed with the way they've done things for a long time. But then power is shifting in the sense over to the person who's now managing the time, now is managing the time of even their superiors, and there's gonna need to be patience basically in both directions. So that's one way that power can shift. Another way that power can shift that I want to speak about is when someone very influential to an organization or to a company or to a team leaves. Now, when somebody leaves, people can be very concerned because they might think that it's starting a problem, some issues happening, and that's just the first sign of somebody jumping ship. Even though very often that's not the case, because of that power shift, people will notice. People have an internal vibration where they, and I'm not trying to be too woo-woo, but people do have an internal vibration where they feel just when power moves one way or another way. And I think that, again, you need to have patience specifically with your staff, with your employees when power shifts that way, because they're not gonna know what's going on. And again, surprise, surprise, you're going to need to employ the power of communication. I think it's always better to be transparent than not. And definitely the thing is that when you don't give people an explanation, then they'll make one up themselves. You don't want rumors going around that aren't true, that might hurt the integrity of the company or the organization. It's very important that you step up, especially if you're a leader in the company or somebody of influence in the company, especially if you are actually privy to this information. It's very important that you step up and you tell everybody, hey guys, here's what's going on. There's no reason to worry. This is a very intentional strategic move. Tell people the honest truth. And if you're honest with people, you'll be surprised, and you're communicative with people, you'll be surprised at how well received you are, even if the message you're communicating is not the happiest one. Everything that's really going on in our case is upwards, onwards. We're moving steadfast. Everything's really, really good. But there are situations where people leave and there's a power shift when things are not so good. And it's really important to consider that there's going to be lots of places that kind of springs from. So there's going to be more than one leak when there's a power shift. It's almost never one. So even in that first example, when I said, we have the founder and the assistant kind of relationship, there's kind of two places that we need patience. Both need to go both ways. You also need to be, I should also mention that relationship, both of them need to be patient with themselves as well and recognize that they're both also figuring it out, especially if it's their first time doing it. But in the other example, when we have, employees or staff or whatever, or teammates, there's again going to be a lot of different ways that this power shift kind of affects people. And it's really important to apply patience, specifically patience in all of those facets. Patience and communication. I cannot tell you how many times I've read these things in these books, these fantastic books like Tribal Leadership, Good to Great. All these are just amazing business general books. All of them talk about patience, communication. It's just so important that we use these tools, especially in the case of power shifting. Because if you recognize that someone's now taking on a larger role in a company or a smaller role in the company, in that they're leaving or they're moving down to part-time or whatever it is, again, patience and communication. You need to really communicate what's going on, especially if you're a leader, because like I said before, and I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but this is important, because if you do not give people an explanation, they'll come up with their own. If you let people just think, oh, this might be bad, this is probably a bad thing, that's generally what they're going to communicate throughout the company or the team or the organization, and you don't want that to happen. So guys, again, I know this is a bit of a kind of ramble video, but the whole goal here was to have a stream of consciousness where I was able to just kind of tell you lessons based on things that we're kind of going through and I'm kind of going through, just documenting my experience as it goes, as someone who's moving up and up and up and hopefully continues to go higher and higher. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, I'm super open to answering them. I just think this is advice that will help you become what you must become, regardless of what your path is. Again, this can obviously be applied to lots of different situations. I used business primarily because that's what I do day in and day out. But if you guys are in sports or in entrepreneurship in any kind of way, I'm sure this stuff will help you. So yeah, anyway guys, my name is Spencer from the Must Become YouTube channel. I believe that what you can become, you must become. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like any of this content. I would hate for a great video to come out that really speaks to you specifically and for you to miss it. So please make sure you also ring that notification bell so you know whenever I upload. I know this was a long one, guys. Hope you guys got some value, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much.